the best thing you can do early in your career is realize no company will ever care about you, and you should work as little as you need to in order to get by and not give them even 1 extra second of your life. And that was tweeted by Carrie Hernandez with the handle eating in my car. Hi everyone. Hello. Yes, it's that time again. Listen, the week went really quick. So we are Tuesday, can you believe it? And we are in February. And I kind of feel like I had a conversation with a friend. And what we have agreed is that January was a bit of a lull for a lot of people. And I think, it was difficult, isn't it? Because December, Omicron, I think that, there's no fixed time when you're expected to acknowledge that you're in a new year. And sometimes for some people, it comes as a bit of a shock, especially if you haven't done certain things, or, everybody's saying all their plans and they're doing their objectives. And for some people, it just takes us longer to accommodate, or you may have gotten sick and therefore you haven't had the opportunity to really process the fact that you're going into a new year. So then I definitely felt like, from my perspective, January was quite a difficult month. It was a bit of a struggle month. I call it like a blue month. And I've never had that before in January. But mind you, I'm not where I was this January, where I was last year. I definitely think there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of mentality growth. There's been a lot of societal growth. And there's been a lot of changes. And I definitely think that when it has come to how we see society as a whole, especially with the government and the antics that is happening, I think it's definitely given us a lot of perspective. And January was that reflecting over 2021. The reflection didn't just happen in December 2021, if that makes sense. I also want to take the opportunity to welcome new listeners. I have had a lot of new listeners, and I can see it not only in the numbers and the download numbers, but people reaching out to me in the DMs and on different social media platforms who have recently discovered the podcast and who have purchased the masterclass, gone onto the website, and have started to implement certain things or needed reassurance and got that through the podcast. So I just want to welcome all the new listeners. We are here with a brand new episode every single Tuesday. Last week's episode was a dilemma episode, and I the feedback I got on last week's episode, my DMs were flooded, and there was one person, and a fellow queen, and she messaged and she says, "Sis, can I just say, this episode, you are the strict auntie who tells us to get our shit together." And that was that episode. That was a nice little summary of that episode. Sister, auntie, accountability partner, whatever you want to call me. But one thing I'm never ever going to do is sell you the fantasy or romanticize work, or make it seem as though we are to be mollycoddled in a very vicious society we currently live in. I'm not going to do that to my fellow black queens. I'm going to give you the reality. And sometimes that reality requires us to also check ourselves. We have to check ourselves. And I was starting to see kind of certain things. I started to, like, from the mailbox, I was getting certain dilemmas and I was getting certain DMs, and I thought, hang on a minute, let's hit the factory reset. Do you understand? Like, let's put that car in neutral and just check ourselves. And for me, I definitely feel as though I'm very hard on myself anyway, and I regularly check myself, and I regularly have my friends around me who check the shit out of me. Do you understand? So I can't come on here and give us and teach us and, help develop the tools to navigate the world of work without also checking our mentality and how we are processing information, and maybe some bad habits we've picked along the way that would make us feel better about certain situations in the world of work. As black women, we should accept and appreciate that our greatest superpower is being underestimated. Our greatest superpower is being overlooked, because they won't see you coming. They don't expect any strategy. And then when we come swinging out the gate, they are almost surprised when in fact they discounted us, not because of anything else other than prejudice, other than the fact that we are black women. There is no other reason why they have discounted us. And in workplaces and organizations where we're not very well represented, it's very difficult then, in my view, when we're not represented in workplaces, we almost become the token. And in becoming the token, there is like, I sometimes feel like there's an expectation at work, and I will always say to you, listen, I've been in workplaces before where I'm only black person, and to an extent you are the token, but then you have to also be able to take yourself out of situations and check yourself and make sure that you are focused on whatever the strategy is as to the reason why you're in that organization. I've always been very open and very honest that I never saw success in one job. I really didn't. I never climbed the career ladder in one job. I really didn't. I never saw financial, I never realized my financial capability until I moved certain jobs. So once I have achieved my objective, my personal objective in a role, I will move on. And I have also made mistakes as well of staying in places too long, or feeling as though that I was scared. But I definitely know that the greatest risk that I've taken has given me the greatest reward. But in that comes the fact that sometimes we learn bad habits, and we learn these bad habits as a coping mechanisms in organizations that are not basically created for the success of black women. We are constantly in survival mode, and when you're in that mode, you do pick up bad habits, you do make excuses, you do find excuses to justify certain things. So last week's episode for me was an opportunity for me to hit the factory reset button for all of us, and to also impose boundaries as well for myself, because I pour into the platform, I pour into the podcast because I genuinely want the success of black women. I genuinely want us to be successful, and I genuinely believe in communicating and also teaching the blueprint of how I've seen success, but not removing the reality of how I've had to get there. And even though I'm here, and even though I am successful, you guys hear it every week or every other week. I tell you what's going on at work. Like, I'm really honest about it, and I'm honest about how I am dealing with it and how I'm using all those tools and all those skills that I teach you guys on a practical level. There is an episode that will be out in the next few weeks called Mass Exodus, and I'm going to put everybody on notice right now. When you see that episode, in the show notes, that will be in capital letters. Proceed to listen to this episode with a notepad and pen. You see that episode, you're going to be shocked to the core. And it's happening at the moment. So that episode is playing out right now. I thought I'd seen it all in workplaces. I genuinely thought I'd seen it. And I say all, I mean like not the absolute all, but as in nothing will shock me. Last week, I had one of the greatest shocks. And I had one of the greatest shocks because I predicted it. I absolutely predicted it. And it happened exactly as I predicted it. And it happened that way because, number one, I'm working in an organisation that gives no Fs. And I am working in and amongst people who are not necessarily understanding the environment they're working in. And I'm working with people who not only have their own agendas, and you should have your own agendas, but it's what people are willing to do to enforce their agenda. I'm going to say it will be a defining episode because of the learnings out of it. And because it's playing out right now, I'm also learning a lot. And I'm also learning about myself in this particular situation. And I'm really excited to record that episode because the passion that will come through in that episode, yeah? And no one is going to predict it. You're not going to predict that episode. Once I give you the synopsis and then I launch into it, you won't be expecting what I'm going to say to you. But it's playing out right now. And to be watching it playing out is shocking. But equally as well, I definitely think and continue to express to you guys that these organizations have been created for the benefit of white people and not for any type of benefit for black women. And as black women, we need to shine our eyes. You take your finger off the button. You keep your foot off the necks. And I promise you, these people never give up in their violence. Never. And the extent they're willing to go to perpetuate that violence is sickening. But unless we are gathered here and we are creating these safe spaces to have this conversation, we're not exchanging experiences. And this is why I think that the Toy Talks podcast is so beautiful, because every week we congregate here, every week we gather here, and we are sharing experiences through the dilemmas, through my experiences, through things that people have experienced, through conversations, and through things that I'm seeing playing out with other people that where I'm not involved. And I come here and I share it. One, so that you don't feel alone and isolated. Two, to open your eyes and allow you guys to also learn from these situations. But more importantly, so that we have context in the workplaces that we're working in, whether you are a fixed term, permanent, consultant, whether you're in the public sector, private sector, charity sector, third sector, whatever sector, the Toy Talks podcast is for you. For black women, to black women, about black women. And I will always center black women in everything I do. I am a black woman. So our experiences in the world of work can never be the same as our white counterparts, whether male or female. It never will. When we are different. And we are different because underpinning it all is racism. And they see the difference. They see us as different to them. And they're trying to make it as though being a black woman is a disadvantage. And I'm telling you, that assumption is our greatest superpower. And I've been using my superpower, and believe me, the way I'm launching in this place, I'm launching. The ancestors are active. But remember what I said, in a couple of weeks' time, there is going to be an episode called Mass Exodus. The way I'm going to hype that episode, I'm hyping it. I'm going to hype it. And if you don't bring your pen and pad, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. Unless you re-listen anyway. So in this episode, I thought I was going to talk about kind of relationships from the perspective of, obviously last year I got married, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And obviously there are things, we've spoken about relationships and stuff like that before, and part of the reason why we've done that is because, listen, at the end of the day, we talk about the world of work, but there is a balance of life, and the world of work and life coexist together. So it's important that I share that side as well, but also from the perspective of mindsets and looking at the financial aspect. And we had like the financial literacy season as well last year, so it all kind of intertwines. However, as is always the case, whenever I say this is the episode that's going to be next week, and I need to learn, right? Because every time I put that out there, the ancestors will redirect me. So I have been advised by a really good friend of mine to watch the Tinder Swindler. And what I am going to do is put that together with the episode I was planning to do this week. I will do a review in it. We're going to talk and everything. But one of the reasons why my friend said I need to watch it and stuff and do a review is it's about the whole internet dating. And I've been really transparent with you guys. I met my husband on Tinder. And I know that Tinder has changed beyond recognition. But also as well, I think there needs to be a balance of, talking about relationships as well, because there are certain attributes we look for in a partner, and there are certain characteristics we look for in a partner as well. And I think you don't work hard to not want to share that with someone. And maybe you do. Maybe you work hard and you don't want to be with anyone. And that's fine. But I do want to talk about it from the perspective of working hard and, you're investing in yourself and things like that. And then you want to meet someone, you want to settle down and things like that. And, for me, I definitely think, getting married last year, and I didn't announce it anywhere. I think towards the end of last year, you guys saw a picture, and there was a reason for it as well. So we're going to gather here at some point, and we're going to have that conversation. However, this episode, I'm thinking of what I'm going to name it. So by the time you listen to it, I would have named it already. But it's centered on performance reviews. It's centered on performance reviews because I received a dilemma, and I received that dilemma last week. However, it was playing out, and I think I did mention that. And now it's played out to a point where I can bring it here to the podcast. I'm also going to be talking about Fandy Newton. We're going to talk about her as well at the end. And I can't do this episode without talking about her. And I know people were saying to me, oh, what's your view? Let's do that afterwards, yeah? We're going to do that after the main bit of this episode. So, performance reviews. So, I received a DM from a black queen, and she was really going through it at work. And I said to her, I don't take DMs, dilemmas through DMs. Please, could you, email the mailbox? And basically, she had done her performance review. So she's been in the organisation, I think 1 or 2 years. I think it's 1 year she's been here. And she's done really well. Actually, maybe it's 2 years. But anyway, she's done really well in that organisation. She was promoted within a few months. Feedback is always amazing. And she's kept everything. That's something that she's still quite relatively... I wouldn't say she's new to the podcast, but what I will say is I don't think she fully committed to the podcast. However, she had been listening to episodes, and that became very apparent from her dilemma. Now, she has been doing really well. Feedback is amazing. She's working with really senior stakeholders, and we're talking directors, and we're talking about directors, COOs, and CPO, all of them. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine now, up until recently, she got on really well with her line manager. And, they had a pretty good relationship, right? Our young black queen was divulging personal information about herself. And I know this from the grievance because it's not something she told me. So when she approached me, she basically said, listen, I've got my performance review, and I think what happened is either the performance review was shared before a meeting or afterwards, whatever the case is. But in that performance review, her line manager basically highlighted things of concern. These are concerns that were never raised before. In fact, the whole year had been amazing. It had been full of praise, full of tangible deliverables. Okay, so it can't be argued that at any one time she was failing at her job. And I hate the word failing, but for the context of this, that's the word I'm going to use. That was not even a part of it. She was, all intents and purposes, a star employee. In her performance review, it was actually, it made quite concerning reading because it didn't match up to the person on a day-to-day basis that is delivering and doing really well, being recognised, you name it, any type of recognition in that organisation, this woman is getting it. So then you've got this performance review, and it didn't make any sense. So by the time she had come to me, it was at a point where she had kind of raised concern about the performance review and the contents within it, and it was dealt with quite flippantly. The view was that this is what it is. I'm your line manager. You need to sign it. Now, God's so kind. This young woman was like, she knew that she can't sign this thing. And it was I got the impression that it was on principle. She just could not sign something that wasn't factual. And at that point, she came to me and she DM'd me. And she said to me, listen, Toya, this is the situation. So she sent everything in an email. And the first email, she did mention that because she had raised the fact that she's going to make a grievance, one of the directors said that they want to have a meeting with her. Now, this particular director wanted to have a meeting with her and then told her to put the meeting in the diary. So when our young queen came to me and told me this, I said, well, first of all, they're not taking you seriously. And she said, why? And I said, well, you said you're going to raise a grievance. Then the director now says he wants to have a meeting with you, but he wants you to put the meeting in. If it was serious enough for him to take seriously, wouldn't he get his EA, PA, or wouldn't he put it in himself? Anyway, she went to that meeting with the director, and all it was a barrage of gaslighting. And they basically said to her, the performance review isn't that serious. The contents of it isn't that serious. In fact, the things that they were put in there is to challenge her. I want you to listen carefully. To challenge her. So let's get this right. This is an all-star employee. that delivers. Promotion within the first few months of her tenure. She continues to deliver, a high performer, given added responsibility. She hasn't got a small job, you know. This is a big, like, I'm talking about heavyweight job here. This is not small fry. It's not entry fry. This is big job. I'm serious. When I saw where she works, I said, this is a serious something. So you can tell that there was a lot of investment from her side to get to where she is now. Because as a black woman, we know that we're not smooth sailing it. There was a lot of investment. So when this director was gaslighting her, telling her that she should sign it, that how it's to challenge her, that was a red flag, and I'll tell you why. If the only way you can challenge your staff is by writing false narratives, that's not challenging. That is not only demoralizing, but it is dangerous. Because had she signed it, she would have been signing something that's false, but that would have ended up on her record. So then if something happened and they wanted to review her performance, they won't even now remember that she's been doing amazing. They will go to that performance review and say, well, you signed it, so you agreed with the contents. And I don't understand what it is in the workplace other than pure discrimination and racism, where somebody is exceeding your expectations, so you want to humble them. That's how they see it, is if they put negative thing, it will humble you. Because take the word challenge and remove it. It means, and put in, that's what they're trying to say. So rather than create new objectives, rather than lift the ceiling, we want to create a further ceiling, because number one, we didn't expect you to exceed our expectation. Now you've done so, we're going to now make shit up that we cannot corroborate. Because this black queen was asking them, okay, since you've said all these things that I know are not true, where's the evidence? They couldn't provide it. Now, the author of that performance review is her line manager. So the director is her line manager's manager. Can you see? So when she emailed me, she told me a summary of what happened with the director. And I was very clear to her. I said, my dear, you got two options. They've told you there's no procedure to appeal a performance review, and you haven't found that procedure. So for me personally, this performance review is personal. Now you've got to remember, in between this queen going to the director having conversations, she's also being harassed by her line manager, who's trying to force her to sign it. In fact, I will go as far as say her manager was bullying her. Bullying her. Oh, before you go to a meeting with the director, you have to sign it. The emails, the incessant emails to force her to do it. In fact, the word bullying, I believe it. Yeah, it was the word. It was a description that this young black queen described the situation. So I said, my dear, you know where you have to go with this. She said, yes, she knows. She said that she needs to do a grievance. I said, okay. My spirit is telling me that I need to be there for you. And she really wrestled with doing this grievance. And part of it is the mindset. And I said to her, you're going to have to switch mindsets, because part of it is accepting the situation, that you've been pushed to this point whereby you're now fighting for your job. You are. And she also disclosed to me that they'd recently gone through a restructure, and effectively they were trying to manage her out as well. They were trying to use this process to manage her out, because I think the way she described it is they'd hired they did a restructure, then they hired, I think, too many people. So now they need to cut headcount. But what doesn't make sense to me is why would you cut your star player? The only reason that would make sense is because they see it as money. Maybe her salary is as such that they see it as, there are junior members of staff who are cheaper, so if we cut this one, do you understand? That's the only thing that makes sense. But the performance review I found quite interesting as well, because when I sat back and thought about it, they never actually give you any policy surrounding performance reviews. Now, maybe they do now, but obviously I don't get performance reviews because I'm a consultant. What we call them is deliverables. We don't call them performance reviews. But during my time as a perm or a fixed term or whatever you want to call it, there was no, handbook, or there was no type of procedural documentation about performance reviews, i.e. the ability to appeal. That never existed. And in this young lady's case, it was the same, because they did tell her that you can't appeal it. So the only other way to deal with this is to do a grievance or to sign it and then put up and shut up. Our Black Queen says she ain't doing that. So she sent a grievance, she drafted it, and I said to her, I don't mind reviewing it. So she sent it over. And there was a lot of emotion in it, so I stripped the emotion out. I took all the emotion out, because the actual meat of the grievance, she drafted very, very well. Very, very well. Very succinct, straight to the point. I believe it was about 1.5 pages, maybe 2 pages. But it was succinct, and it needed to be, because there were a few things that she had to address as part of the performance review, but it was succinct, it was straight to the point, it was clear. And the things I added was also to emphasize certain things, and the things I stripped out were more emotional. And in the grievance, she also talks about her relationship with her line manager. And she talks about telling her line manager a few months ago that she wanted to get a mortgage. And then it hit me. I said to myself, it makes sense now as a possibility as to one of the reasons why this manager is hell-bent on getting this queen to sign off on lies about a performance review, talking about her performance that isn't true, and then trying to get this queen to sign it about herself. I say this all the time. Your workplace, you may spend a lot of time there, but these people are not your friends. Why should your manager know that you're applying for a mortgage? Why? Why? What do you expect her to do with that? Have some type of consideration? This is the same manager. When the team were going through restructure, this manager called her and said, don't worry, you're not affected. But yet this is also the same manager that is now writing a performance review about you that's not true, knowing full well there's no policy to support any appeal of a performance review, and that has been systematically harassing you to sign this thing. Does that come across as somebody who is supporting the mortgage application process? Does that come across as somebody who gives a shit about your personal circumstances? If it isn't for the workplace, which is common ground for both of you, is this the type of person you would be friends with outside of work? These are the questions you need to ask yourself when you decide to overstep the mark and erode your boundaries with people. It dawned on me that when you're sharing all this thing, you're sharing this information with somebody who maybe doesn't have a mortgage herself. Or maybe is looking at you thinking, who do you think you are as a Black woman coming here, being great at the job, and on top of it, you want to get a mortgage? No, I need you to understand that you cannot be on my level. This is how some of these people think. When they see Black people, they don't want to see us. And if they see us, they want us on a level that they can control us. And then what do? You give them the passport of control. And then it dawned on me why our queen, our fellow Black queen, is hesitating about this grievance, because she feels as though her mortgage or her mortgage application is in jeopardy. But you have two options: put up, shut up, sign it, raise a grievance, and it's a legitimate grievance that she can evidence, because unwittingly, this Black queen is also challenging the fact that they have no recourse or policy around a performance review. And to her credit, she had kind of developed a feedback folder. So she had everything. So there's no way now, on principle, this queen can just sit there and just put up. Because even if she puts up with it, she'll always now be worrying about her job. Because at the back of her mind, she knows that something fishy is going on. For one, somebody's asking you to sign something they know is false. So what do you think they're going to use that? What do you think they're going to use that for? It's to manage you out. So it's open and shut. So if you're going to, and also you've got to remember, there's in organizations where people ask for, references. Obviously, it's a standard reference. I've told you guys that before. It's usually a name, how long the person was in the organization for, really standard stuff. But there are some organizations that they can pose the question, is there any, there's some, and I believe it's definitely in finance. Finance do this a lot, where sometimes in the standard reference, they might say any other comments. Is there anything you want to add? Do you understand? And some bad mind people will say, well, recent performance review, they did it. They could do that because it's still factual. Equally, I'll put this on everything. Organizations tend to stay away from that because you can sue them. There's been a lot of organizations who have been sued for putting certain things in references that has given rise to people organization rescinding job offers. But it's the ability to now, for this Black Queen, to remove that power from this particular organization from even being able to say anything negative about her. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? Okay, cool. So now I'm thinking to myself as I'm reading this grievance, why did she tell her manager about her mortgage? This must be the reason why this Black Queen is hesitating, because it wasn't really making sense. So in the grievance, I stripped it out about reference to telling her boss about the mortgage. And there was other personal things that she had in there. And I just felt, no, this is from a place of emotion now, because you are wrestling with whether you're going to make this grievance. And David, this grievance is twofold. You're making the grievance against the performance review, and you're making the grievance against your manager because she's the author of that performance review. And then the bullying and harassment that has flowed through this because you're unwilling to accept what she's written. And she's unable to justify it. How can you gaslight somebody in a meeting and a director sitting there saying, oh, it's no big deal? Well, if it's no big deal, take it out then. Take out all the false narrative. They don't want to do it. If it's not a big deal, why do a performance review in the first place? If it's not a big deal, why not put it in writing and say it's no big deal? This director didn't write to this queen and say anything. He had a meeting where it was verbal. Her and him. This queen had the good sense to follow it up with a summary of their conversation. But look at how this organisation is leading. They're leading with conversation. They're leading with things that are not documented. And for me, if this is not a serious something, then put it in writing and say, this is not serious. We've just put this false narrative here, or we've just put this here to challenge you. You can't write that. And you won't write that in the performance review. So if you can't do that in the performance review, if you can't do that in the performance review document, how can you expect me to sign it knowing that I'm signing something that you said is not serious, but becomes serious when I sign it? So I reviewed it, sent it back to her. What I didn't know at the time is this Black Queen had spoken to a lawyer. And the lawyer that she had spoken to said, if you make a complaint about your performance review, they're going to sack you. This young Black Queen messaged me and she told me. I said, that's bullshit. I said, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm a lawyer because I'm not a lawyer. I'm a non-practicing lawyer. I said, I went to law school. I did my degree. I went to law school. I've got my master's in law. I did 6 months of my training contract and knew that law wasn't for me. I'm a commercial contract consultant. I look at contracts all day, every day. I manage suppliers. I negotiate contracts. Everything contractual I do. And I've been doing this for a really long time. I said to her, there is no way in hell that it would ever make sense that if you make a complaint or you raise a concern about a performance review that someone's going to sack you. You are a moving target when you advocate for yourself in any way. You're a moving target. But as Black women, is that not our normal position to be moving targets anyway? So it doesn't make sense. Now, this young Black Queen had told me that she had joined a union, which is fine. You know, you join a union, you do what you think you need to do. And she wasn't sure if the union would support her or she'll be able to use them because she had just joined them. Now, you guys know that in this podcast, there's not one episode you're going to hear where I talk about unions, trade unions. I don't talk about them. And there is a reason. The reason I don't talk about trade unions is this. I definitely can see the benefit in joining a trade union. But it's also about the actual trade union representative you get that helps you. You can get some awful trade union people and then you'll question the amount that you pay into the trade union. There are some that are absolutely bullshit. And you could get the odd gems who are absolutely amazing. And I know for a few people that I know, they haven't always had good experience with trade unions. I also know a couple of people who have had excellent experiences. So for me, I feel as though I can't give a balanced view about trade unions, because if somebody's been in an organisation for a really, really long time, I don't understand, are they able to fully be impartial in understanding the dynamics of an organisation if you've been there for a long time? Are you so wedded and webbed into an organisation that you're unable to see kind of a situation for what it is? So for me, I just have removed myself from even discussing trade unions. I walk in what I believe in. I will never come here and give you false information. I will never come here and tell you something that I didn't believe in. So for me, when it comes to trade union, I'm undecided about my views about them, and therefore I don't talk about them. I encourage people, if you have access to a trade union, join one, because you may meet that one that will really advocate and support you. And sometimes what you need is a listening ear of support. So I definitely think that it's not a wasted payment. But for this young black queen, it was wasted. And I'll tell you why. She went and spoke to someone in a trade union, and they told her that using the word bullying is too harsh. She should remove it and replace it with being victimized. Bullying and victimization are two different things. If you are going to an employment tribunal, they are different headers. I'm now going to read you the definition of bullying. Yeah? Bullying is the use of force, coercion, hurtful teasing, or threat to abuse, aggressively dominate, or intimidate. The behavior is often repeated and habitual. One essential prerequisite is the perception by the bully or by others of an imbalance of physical or social power. This imbalance distinguishes bullying from conflict. Bullying is a subcategory of aggressive behavior categorized by the following three criteria: hostile intent, imbalance of power, and repetition over a period of time. Bullying is the activity of repeated, aggressive behavior intended to hurt another individual physically, mentally, or emotionally. Imbalance of power is very important when you are distinguishing bullying from, say, victimization. It's repeated, it's persistent, it's consistent. So now let's explore the definition of victimization. Victimization is when someone treats you badly or subjects you to a detriment because you complain about discrimination or help someone who has been the victim of discrimination. So, for example, a tutor shouts at a student because he thinks she intends to support another student's sexual harassment claim, for example. This would amount to victimization. Now, based on the definitions I've just given you, and given you the summary of the Black Queen's, our Black Queen's dilemma, is it bullying or is it victimization? It's bullying. Because it can't be the victimization, because if the definition of victimization is when someone treats you badly or subjects you to a treatment because you have complained, she hadn't complained at that time. She hadn't made a complaint. What had happened was when she challenged the performance review, the persistent phone calls, the persistent emails, and the forcing of and the giving of deadlines of information in a performance review that was not true. There is an imbalance of power here because her line manager is clearly more senior. Then you have the director, who is clearly more senior, who has influence, as does the line manager, supporting the behavior of the line manager, who is falsely putting information on performance review that's not true. That's called bullying. You asked me to have a meeting with you so you can gaslight me. Bullying. Do you understand it? As to the reason why now, I could not understand why this trade union representative will now tell this black queen in her grievance to remove bullying and put victimization. That in itself is gaslighting. And this was from a white man. What would a white man know about how black women are doing survival Olympics in the workplace? How would a white person know? And does that white man, who's the trade union rep, does he know the definition of bullying and definition of victimization? Based on the fact that he thinks that they could be swapped out. I'm telling you, he doesn't. Now, remember, I've already read her grievance. I've amended it. Track changes now. I've added things that I think that she needs to highlight. Just change the sentence. Frame this. This is going to say the same thing, but let me help you frame it properly. I didn't realise that she was also speaking to a trade union rep and a lawyer and Toya. I didn't know. So when she came out of the meeting with the director, she was already confused. She didn't know what she wanted to do. So the decision that she made was that she would send a condensed version of the grievance. And that condensed version of the grievance focused solely on the performance review. This is a performance review that has no governance. There's no policy that governs a performance review. But this black queen decided that she would send a reduced or redacted or whatever version of a grievance to focus on the performance review. Do you know what happened as a result? She had a meeting. I believe she had the meeting with... that reduced thing, she sent it to HR. And she asked me, should she copy her manager or whatever? I said, they're going to see it anyway. Me, I will just copy everybody in because you're going to see it anyway. So you might as well see it when I send it. HR obviously shared it with the line manager. Do you know what the line manager did? In the space of an hour, this line manager emailed, tried to call her, did get her on the phone about 3-4 times. If that isn't harassment, I don't know what is. But that behaviour also becomes victimization. Can you see? Because as a result of the complaint now that she's made about the performance review, now her boss is now contacting her, calling her, and is almost treating her detrimentally because of this complaint. Can you see? That is the victimization now. So when she sent that reduced version and complained earlier about the performance review, obviously the manager knows that she's the author. The line manager is the author of that performance review. But because you haven't done this grievance, you haven't made this a formal grievance, number one, and you haven't been clear that as a result of this, you're being bullied, obviously the line manager now is going to harass her. The line manager now said, hey, I've spoken to HR, and HR said there's no policy around performance review. You can't appeal, so you need to sign it. So even after doing a reduced version of a complaint, this line manager is still forcing this young black queen to sign it. And she made this decision. She didn't ask me. She didn't talk to me. She just did and she doesn't have to talk to me. She does not have to. But who has her best interest at heart? And that's what I said to her. Because when eventually she came back to me and she told me that she sent a reduced version, she said, oh, she spoke to the lawyer, she spoke to this person. I was so confused, and she was having a headache. She was confused. I said, there's too many voices. You're talking to too many people. And we're all saying different things. We are all saying different things. But the question I want to ask you is, who has your best interest at heart? Who centers black women? Is it not me? If you had done this the way I had advised you to, you wouldn't be in this situation. So now you've got no choice. When you decide you're gonna advocate for yourself, when you decide that you're gonna challenge a system, you better come out of the gate swinging. This reduced version is because you wanna shrink your voice. You're allowing them to continue to oppress you by giving them a version of a complaint that is palatable to who? To them. This white lady didn't reduce anything when she decided to make woeful lies in your performance review. She didn't shrink anything. She wrote it down in a document and shared it with you. When the director was gaslighting you, he didn't try to find a compromise or anything. He said, hey, it's no big deal. He didn't shrink his voice. The only person that came out of the gate shrinking is you. If you're going to make a grievance complaint, make a grievance complaint. Don't send one redacted something. That's not how it works. And why you would say in the beginning that you're going to make a grievance complaint, I don't understand. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't announce it. Because when you announced it, the reason why that director wanted to speak to you, it was a shakedown. He wanted to see how serious you were. He wanted to see if what you had an issue with had merit or not. And I'm going to put something to you. They knew that you were going to send a reduced version, or they knew that you wouldn't send a grievance. And what you have done is given them enough time to gather all the other chickens and hens in the coop. When you're going to go to war, or when we have seen in the history books of war, one side that's going to war doesn't say to the other one, hi, just let you know, yeah, we are going to be hiding, right? We're going to be hiding down there, just behind that stream. We've got a couple of axes, we've got a couple of spears, we've got a crossbow, and around midnight, we're going to ambush you. They don't do that. They plan, they strategize, they will observe, and then woo, they'll go and take out their opponent. They go to war. I have said it in previous episodes before. This is not new what I'm saying. This is just another context of what I'm saying. If you know you want to make a grievance, don't go announcing that you're going to make a grievance. And if you are going to announce it, make sure you bloody do it. So now you've sent this reduced version. She now realised, she said it to me. She hasn't got choice. She now has to send them the full version. Who told you there was 2 different versions of a grievance, darling? You're either making a complaint about everything or you're not making a complaint at all. So now she said that there's a few things that she wants to change in the grievance. She sent it to me. I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason why I looked at it a second time is I genuinely felt bad for this queen. And you know why I felt bad for her? Because I think she realised what she had done. I said to her, when you decided to raise a concern and your manager basically said, you have to sign it. At that point, your mindset had to shift because you're now fighting for your job. But you didn't fight for your job the way it should be fought. Now that you're now going to send the full version, it's too little too late, darling. Look for another job. But there's something I'm going to say to you. I know that your behavior is governed by the fact that you want to make a mortgage application. So what you are hoping is that if you send a reduced version, that somehow they'll come to their senses and then it will afford you the time to make a mortgage application. But what you didn't realize is, at the moment you told this woman, this line manager of yours, this devil and enemy of progress, when you told her your plans, that is when she decided to let you know who she is. When she sent you this performance review, that's when you should have known that your priority is not the mortgage application, it's your job. Please look for another job. I told her, start looking. Because they're going to use this situation to frustrate you. And you already know that because of the restructure they recently did, they now hired people that hired too much. They're cutting headcount. So they're now using this as a strategy to cut the headcount. And you're one of them. So I re-looked at the grievance. I'm going to be honest. I changed a couple of things. But I realised that there were too many voices. She was listening to too many voices. But the one person who advocates for black women, i.e. someone that looks like her, she didn't want to listen to me. She did. And she was honest. She said, Toya, I was swayed by what the trade union rep said. I was swayed by him. And this is the reason why now she's in the situation that she's in now. So now I believe she may have sent the full grievance. But it's too little too late. Because what they're now going to argue is that because she didn't like the response from her first reduced email about the performance review. Now she's saying she's being bullied. Can you see? When you are dealing with non-black people in the workplace, you need to understand the strategy you're going to use when they show you their hand. When somebody presents a performance review that is wholly untrue, and you've got a full feedback folder to prove otherwise, why would you send anything other than a grievance? Especially when that same manager, that same author, that same enemy of progress is harassing you and bullying you to sign it. She's even giving you deadlines. On your day off, you're getting calls. Or when you're in the office, you're getting emails. But what this queen decided to do, she spoke to me, she came for advice. She spoke to a lawyer. She even said that what the lawyer said didn't make no sense. She went to trade union. They're now telling you how to make it soft. When I looked at her grievance, I told this young queen, this is your voice. This is not my voice. This is your voice. This is your grievance. You own it. All I'm going to do is make sure it comes together and reads well, and make sure there's certain things that come out are clear. I'm going to change some wording. That's all I did. She will confess. That's it. She came to me because I am a black woman advocating for black women, teaching, guiding and educating black women how to navigate the world of work, to highlight the path of us black women, our success. The trade union, the white man in the trade union ain't doing that shit. The lawyer that's telling her bullshit don't make no sense. They are not going to sack you for raising a complaint about a performance review. They will sack you if you don't raise a full grievance and do it properly. That's when they're going to do it. Even if she would be looking for a job afterwards, at least she would have had a 50-50, or at least more than a 50-50 chance of actually even negotiating the wording. She could have had that chance. But this manager is staunch. I ain't changing it. I ain't compromising. You are going to sign it. And she hasn't got no choice now. Because that grievance that she's now done, listen, if I was that organisation, I would say to them, well, you sent me a complaint about the performance review. And now you're not happy with our answer. You're now telling me you're bullied. So why didn't you mention you were bullied the first time when you sent the reduced, the other complaint? It doesn't make sense. It's not consistent. And I think the lesson here is, number one, you need to be very, very clear about your objectives when you're in a situation. The first thing I ask her when she reached out to me is, what solution are you seeking? And I never got an answer to that question. I didn't get the answer. And I think it was missed because there was a lot of things happening with her. And I think there was a lot going on in her mind. But when she came to me, I felt like I could be her safe space. And I hope I have been her safe space, because everything I told her was going to happen has happened. They never took her seriously from the beginning when she raised a concern. When the director called her for a meeting and she's setting up the meeting, this is a person that said they're going to make a grievance. You have told her you want to talk to her about it because they want to talk her out of it, but she has to go and set up the meeting. This meeting didn't include the author of the performance review. So I already knew that this was bullshit. On top of that, she has evidence to support the fact that everything in that performance review is bullshit. But her reluctance to use it told me that she has to make that mind shift. 4, when she decided and she made the decision to send a reduced version of the grievance, so it was no more a grievance, she signed a document that would make them manage her out. She did. Because what she did is she never came out of the gate swinging. There was a full grievance policy. She should have followed it. I sent her the episode where I raised a grievance. I wanted her to listen to it, but I don't think it landed. If she had listened to me and done this grievance when I said, and in that grievance I told her, if it's me, I will copy the HR, I will copy the director, I will copy the line manager. Yes, we're going to war. Then I would have added all my evidence to support everything that disputes the contents of the performance review. Then I would have made it clear that there is no policy governing performance review, and therefore you think that your manager has gone rogue. I would have written all those things. And I would have said in there, I need to know why I'm being disproportionately treated in comparison to, and I would have found a comparator that is a non-black person. Because I'm not saying it's racial, I'm just saying I'm disproportionately treated. So I need you to explain why I'm disproportionately treated. It's the inference. To let them know that you are not only do you have a comparator, but you need them to explain why you are being treated different. And the comparator I would have used is somebody who maybe hasn't done well in a performance review. Or somebody who is non-black that has done really well. I would have asked them to compare us and tell me what's the difference. And why I am being disproportionately treated knowing that I have delivered. So that person that I'm comparing myself to somebody who hasn't delivered, so that we have now a clear definition of what non-deliverables look like. Then we have somebody who is non-black, who has delivered at the same level as me, but yet my performance review is negative. Then the inference that you're saying is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm a woman? What is it? Because I'm confused as to the reason why. And then you put the burden on them to explain why. Once you put them in that high jump, it's called framing. There's a podcast episode called Framing. Go and listen to it. I'm not telling you that you're treating me like this because I'm black or because I'm a woman. I'm asking you, is that a possibility? Because the way you're treating me is not making sense. And then the burden of proof falls to them to prove their position. When you're going to fight for your job, you have to do it properly. There's nothing called small war. It doesn't work like that. Dominic Cummings, I keep talking about this man. You guys must think it's a joke thing. Dominic Cummings has come swinging out the gate. He went through the front door with his burn folder and his boxes. And he went through the front door. Because he knew that he will have to put them on a high jump. When he came out of that front door with his burn folder, he didn't say to them, I'm going to make sure Boris is out. I'm going to make his life hell. He never said that. His actions have done the talking for him. Why is it as black women, we use our mouth to sell ourselves? Why? Moving in silence isn't just with your quote-unquote friendship groups. Moving in silence extends to every part of your life. And that moving in silence that I'm saying is this. When I talk about moving in silence, when you are manifesting great things in your life, like getting a mortgage, that's a great thing. Why do you use your mouth to go to somebody who can undo it? Why? I said to this queen, I said, listen, you're going to get your mortgage, you know, but God knows that the mortgage process is as such that you need it to run smoothly, because there's going to be a point where you have to provide your bank statement and your pay slips. And what you don't want is to be in a situation where you know they're managing people out. You've applied for your mortgage and then you lose your job. And then it takes you maybe a month to get another job. Then you have to declare that to the mortgage lender, and they then are in a situation where they can rescind your mortgage offer. You don't want that situation. So maybe what God is trying to do is like a Noah's Ark. He wants to clear all the debris, all ambiguity, to give you a new path of greatness. And be under no illusion. You may change job or whatever, but you also have to show consistent employability. So maybe you've been in this job for 2-3 years, then you move to another job. The mortgage lender says, you need to be there a few more months, you need to be there 6 months. Fine. Some mortgage lenders, they like risk. So they'll say, okay, fair enough, she's just started this job. But this last one, she was there for 2 years and she's now got this job. This is a perm. Okay, we'll give her mortgage. It's not an absolute. It's not an absolute. Take it from me. It's not an absolute that you have to be in that same job. But when you are manifesting greatness, stop telling these white people what you're doing. Stop it. If they wanted you to be great, they wouldn't write false things in their performance review, knowing that it's going to go in your record in HR. Who does that? Who tells you that it's not that big deal? It's just to challenge and motivate you. But you haven't put anything challenging or motivating. You've just put lies. How can lies challenge and motivate somebody? This is your line manager that you're saying, oh, you were doing 5 and 6. Oh, she was your shadow. She was your everything. Bullshit. Listen, you see my boss at work? I absolutely adore her. I think she's amazing. But I ain't stupid. Let me tell you something. When I got married, and I'm digressing slightly, we'll come back to this thing. When I got married, when Kay and I planning to get married, we got married on a Saturday. So I needed to take Thursday, Friday off. Obviously, I'm a consultant. You don't work, you don't get paid. I said to myself, I've been planning this for months. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell no one. Then I needed to take the 2 days off. And the project I'm working on, I'm serious. We had some serious deadlines. You have to have a very good reason as to the reason you're not going to be working. Very. I said, okay. Now I can tell her. Because I have a very good reason and I'm not going to be in those 2 days. And it's critical that I'm in because of this project, but I'm not going to be there. So I called my line manager. I said, Deborah. She said, yes, Toya. I said, I'm not going to be in Thursday, Friday. She said, no. Toya, we can't. You have to be there. I said, sorry, Deborah. I'm getting married on Saturday. She said, what? When did that happen? I said, I've been planning it for a few months. She goes, I didn't even know you were engaged. I love that. I said, yeah. I got engaged October last year. She said, wow, okay. No problem, Toya. Please, I'm going to step into your shoes then. I will personally handle this thing. But Toya, I'm so surprised that you're getting married. You didn't even tell me anything. I didn't even know you was engaged. Wow. She goes, you didn't even look old enough to be engaged. Imagine. I like that. You don't need to know my plans. I don't know what's going on in your life. You could be going through a divorce. I can't come now and be telling you I'm engaged, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, I'm getting that. I can't tell you everything. I'm not saying don't tell them all. I'm just giving you my example. My boss could have made it really difficult for me if I was just taking it off just like that. But can you see that she was more shocked at the fact that I was engaged? Because I don't need to tell her what I'm about to manifest. I don't need to tell you that. I don't know if my blessings trigger something negative in you. You could be going through a divorce and I'm coming to tell you I'm getting married. You could be going through, I don't know, maybe you've been dating for so many years, you haven't found the one. And maybe me getting married will trigger you negatively. I don't know. Anything. There could be any reason. And this is the reason why you have to be spare. You have to be careful what you're sharing. Because you don't know what other people are going through. You don't know what you're going to trigger in them. I don't go telling people stuff because I want them to know my business. You're not going to know my business. When I posted on Twitter, I can't close the year without saying that this year was great because I got married. People were shocked. I like that. I call it the Peak Mills effect. Peak Mills got married and had a whole child and none of y'all know nothing. If you guys know OG YouTubers, you know Peak Mills. Peak Mills moves in silence. I like her MO. I love that. So, the reason I give that example is I have to be between a rock and a hard place for me to even tell you anything. And if I'm telling you, it's because I have no choice. But I'm also watching you to know if I can tell you. Because me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna do that. Better I don't tell you. This line manager, this queen was saying, oh, she called me to tell me my job was safe. I had a good relationship with her. You went to the shop together. You went to lunch together. She calls you all the time. And look at it now. There is some hard lessons this black queen is learning. And I said, you see that L? It's called learning lesson. It will never happen to you again. Never. I genuinely believe that there is something there about performance reviews not having a governance or a policy. It's a problem. Because it means that you erode the ability for people to challenge. So unfortunately, you do have to make a complaint about the actual performance review. And you label it as a complaint. But then if you have to then up it a notch because of the result or because of the feedback of the complaint, if you know that what is contained in there is false, you cannot sign it. Because it's going on your permanent record. It's going on your file in that workplace. And I don't know about anybody else, but like this black queen, I too am a very principled person. I can't allow that to happen. Because who knows, that could stop you from getting promotion, bonus. You don't know. Unfortunately, whenever you advocate for yourself as a black woman, you are a moving target. So you've just got to accept that you go into organisation moving target. When you start advocating, you become a moving target. And when you make a grievance, you're a moving target. So either way, we are comfortable knowing that we're moving targets. And I started off by telling you that I never saw success in one job. I never did. I saw success in several jobs. I saw acceleration in several jobs. I saw money increase in several jobs and then contracting and becoming a consultant. Being a consultant, I've told you, is one of the best things I ever did because I climbed the career ladder quickly. And even quicker, I climbed the career ladder quickly because I was happy to move from job to job. So I'll be in an organisation 2-3 years, I'll move, 2-3 years, I'll move, 2-3 years, I'll move. And then being a consultant, it's expected that you're going to move. Some stints are 6 months, some 9 months, maybe 1 year. In my case, 14 months. So for me, I see the benefit in understanding that. As soon as I understood that, in order to see success, I would have to move around. Because if you think about it, if you go to certain organizations, there's ceilings. So how can you, sometimes you can't even break that ceiling. How can you break that ceiling? If you're the token, you're not even get opportunity. There may be a small margin of opportunity to make you the token, but that also comes at a price. When you are doing a performance review, you have to have that feedback folder ready. You've got to. Because had this queen listened to me and done the grievance from the beginning, what she would have been relying on is that. And she could have single-handedly changed the content of that performance review. She could have. And whilst her tenure would have been precarious, at least she could have stayed there for a few months until she was ready to go. But now she's placed herself in a position that she has to start looking from now, and she knows it. I also want to give you the perspective of the organisation, or one perspective to consider. Now that she has, because she hasn't managed this properly, and she admittedly says she hasn't managed it properly. From the organisation's perspective, she's a liability, and a liability is a risk. A risk of unstabling her work colleagues, a risk that what she says holds merit, and also as well, they now have to defend themselves because now she's formally activated a grievance process. They will use the first complaint against her. If you're being bullied and you're complaining about performance review, and because of that performance review you're being bullied, why would you leave that out of your original complaint? Now, because we've told you that we're not going to amend that performance review, you've now added bullying. And now it now falls on credibility, unfortunately. If there is credibility, if there is merit in the bullying, you would have mentioned that part and parcel of your original complaint. They are going to manage her out. Before they do that, they'll make life very uncomfortable for her. And it means that she may make mistakes because her environment now will become quite toxic. Those mistakes that she makes will now bolster her line manager's position of what she's put in the performance review. And she now will be faced with a situation. If you do not sign, we'll have to put you on performance management. That's the direction. And we all know what happens when we go down to that avenue of performance management. That is a way now to proactively manage her out. One of the reasons I've shared this is not, obviously, I always share dilemmas. I don't deal with people, I don't have a personal consulting service where I give people one-to-one advice. I don't do that. If you send a dilemma, it's to be shared with everybody because everybody can learn from it. I think, like I mentioned before when I started off saying, and then I digressed, is there's many things to learn from this situation. And a couple of them is you can't listen to too many voices. You have to choose the voice you want to listen to. What I provide is advice. If you want to take it, great. If you don't, that's up to you. I felt very frustrated at the fact that I'd spent a lot of time drafting this grievance for her because on the Monday she said that she wanted to submit it, only for her to then do a U-turn and submit something completely different and go down a different road. But again, recognizing that this is her voice, this is her situation. She wears the shoes, so she knows where it hurts. But if you are going to get advice from different people, you also have to place yourself in a situation where you also consider the positions of each person and where they're coming from. And you need to look at the people who are giving you that advice. A white man can't tell you if you're being bullied or not. They are not going to understand gaslighting. How many times is a middle-class white man gaslit? Does that even exist for them? No. That's not the reality of their existence. When somebody is trying to manipulate you into downplaying your experiences, you have to again look at the person who's doing that. Why would somebody do that? If someone tells me they're being bullied, whether I believe they're being bullied or not, that is what they believe. I will ask them why, they'll give me examples, but that's what you believe. I may have my own view, and I may share that view with you, but I'm not now going to tell you to change the wording in a grievance to accommodate or make me feel more comfortable. That word bullying made him feel uncomfortable. He's probably bullied people before. And he wanted to water down by using victimization, not knowing that victimization has a completely different definition. The lawyer who said to her, if you make a complaint about your performance, you're going to be managed out. I think what she should have said to her is, if you don't manage this properly, if you do not set your stall out clearly, you will give them a window of opportunity to manage you out. But they're not going to sack you. Managing someone out and sacking is two different things. But she said they're going to sack you. No, they can't just sack you like that. It doesn't work like that. And then I gave her advice. I said, this is your voice. I respect the situation. I will review it for you, but this is yours. This is what could happen. This is what may happen. This is a probability. This is my view. This is my advice. I wish she'd listened to my advice because I don't necessarily think she'll be in the position that she's in now because she has no leverage, no upper hand, nothing. She's now at their mercy, and that's not a good space to be in. So I would ask and encourage all of you to take the learning lessons. Listen, I wasn't happy with a performance review that I had a few years ago when I was a perm employee. And my performance review was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. It was brilliant. And when my boss had spoken to the new head of department who had come externally, he said my face didn't fit. He said that I'm not as cheerful in the morning or whatever bullshit he said. And I sat in that meeting and I was so angry because he wanted to humble me. My feedback, the performance review was perfect, but he wanted to leave a little stain to humble me. Because there's no way this black woman is just going to get 100%. Nah, she's going to get 99.9. I said, well, my boss knew that that's not even entering that performance review. She can't. But she said it to me verbally. And in that moment, she had no reason to tell me that. Unless she now decided she wanted to put it in the review. But she knew that the feedback folder was strong. She couldn't do it. That is an example of how non-black people, even in your greatest greatness, they will always try to dim your light. Always. Because they think it's their job to humble you. The assumption is, why can't I be great and humble? Why? Why can't I be great and humble? Why do you need to break me for that to define what humility looks like to you? Where does that come from? It comes from a place of racism. It comes from a space of discrimination. If you was a man, do you think he would do that? No. If you were a white woman, would he have done that? No. He did that because I am a black woman. And he wanted to reinforce to me where my ceiling was. And my ceiling was where he said it would be. And what did I do? I became a consultant. That's what I did. Had it been written down, I promise you, I would have taken out a formal grievance complaint against the performance review and the director. That's what I would have done. And the burden of proof would have been on them to tell me that my face didn't fit, to give me an example why can't my face fit? Is it because I'm the only black woman in the room? I would have written it there. Because at that point, what else do I don't have nothing to lose. When you have a unique skill set, and your unique skill set is also becoming a subject matter expert in whatever it is that you do, that is leverage. You are never going to see success in one job, not when the institutional structures of racism continue to reign. You're never going to see success in one role. And if that 1% sees success in one role, go and talk to them. Every last hair, even the pubic hairs, will be grey. Why can't we see success and be happy without all this frowning, without all this grey hair? Why can't we? Why must we be dragged to the bare inch of a breakdown before we see success? Why? No, that's not how I operate. When he said my face didn't fit, I went to go and find where my face was fitting. My face fits as a consultant. My face fits where the money resides. And they still ended up needing me to go back there. And I went there as a consultant and I charged them the maximum day rate. Since my face doesn't fit, let my money fit in the bank account. Thank you. So, hopefully you've learned something from that. I know you guys are going to ask me for a masterclass on it, and maybe that might come. You see, this February, I'm so excited. I'm excited for February. I'm excited for releases. I'm excited for some additional masterclasses. I'm excited because I know for a fact when you give black women the blueprint and the tools, success. That's what I know. Yeah? So, let's quickly move to dilemmas before we move to Sister Thandi. Remembering, of course, last week's episode where I was very clear about my boundaries. On the 2nd of February at 5:58, I received a DM on Snapchat. And this person had messaged me to tell me that they had sent me an email and that is urgent. That they have a is it probation meeting? performance review the next day. So she needs me to come back to her before the performance review. And I wrote back to her, I said, excuse me, hello, I don't work like that. First of all, you will not send me a dilemma on Snapchat. That's not how this works. Whilst you've said to me, you sent me an email, you've sent it at 5:58. I don't work by your time. You do not know. You do not do that. Your lack of planning is not my urgency. You knew before now that you had a performance review. You knew it. But you're not affording me any respect. You're not respecting my time. You're not respecting my day. I'm planning a wedding. And I gave her a list of my deliverables, my life deliverables. I'm not doing it. Since you don't respect your performance review enough to come to me before now, I am not going to afford your performance review any respect, because you don't. It's not my job, it's yours. So you have to set the tone of how you want me to engage with you. If you take your job seriously, your career seriously, you won't come to me at 5:58. 2 minutes before 6 p.m. Then you want me to drop everything and go and labour. But you haven't laboured. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Your poor planning is not my urgency. And that's my philosophy with work. You can't come to me in the third hour and tell me it's urgent, you need it in 10 minutes. I will even wait for 10 minutes to come back to you and tell you I can't do it. That's on period. Because some people, they don't understand anything else. Sometimes you have to show them that this is urgent for you. It's not urgent for me. And you're not going to put that pressure on me to make it urgent for me so that I feel the pressure that you're feeling. That's not going to happen. And we need to respect the boundaries. Because if you listen to my podcast, you will understand that I don't play like that. But I'm going to be clear. If you send me an email at 8 a.m. in the morning and expect a response within 10 minutes, you ain't going to get it. Because that's happened before. I don't work to your time. You are not the director of my business. I am the director of my business. And moreover, I don't do consultancy service. I don't do consultancy service for dilemmas. I don't. We do a dilemmas here for everybody to learn. But what you're not going to place me in is in a situation whereby I have to drop everything because you believe what you're doing is more important than what I'm doing. But you're not even respecting my time. That's not going to happen. So I went back to her and told her exactly that. I am going to read her dilemma out because she did send it. And hopefully this will be a learning for anybody who is in the same situation. Hi Toya team. I hope you're well. I today had a call with my manager for an end of year performance review, which I thought went well. My manager and I exchanged our write-ups before the call. Her summary of my work and character was positive. I submitted my write-up to the portal to find that one of the 7 objectives, and she wrote what it was marked as outstanding. I emailed my manager to double check if that was intentional or a mistake, since this point was not raised during our call. Her response was yes, I did do that intentionally, based on my own observation and feedback from the business. Because I strongly disagree and realised this wasn't something discussed during our call, I want to respond back with comments saying something along the lines of, it would be useful to understand some suggestions where it is felt that I could be more, and then obviously whatever that objective is. Of all the competencies, this is the one I'd least expect to be marked as outstanding. It's also worth noting that recently 2 senior members of staff gave both her and our department head some unsolicited positive feedback about me, my work, and how we recently completed a project together. So did they put it in writing? This unsolicited feedback, is it in writing? Is it in the feedback folder? No, it's all lip service. Generally speaking, my manager has been a pleasure to work with. She is, if anything, too nice and willing to take on extra workloads from other teams. However, I want to be strategic about this as something is not adding up. The deadline to submit my comments back in the system is today. Ooh. So when you sent it to me at 5:58, was the deadline at 6 p.m? I don't understand. We were due to have this call in December, then January, but we had to push back a couple of times, and I'm now back to work after taking 2 weeks off with COVID. Any advice is greatly appreciated. So you're basically telling me about COVID to justify your last minute email. That's not going to wash. I had COVID in December. If you couldn't do this performance review, you would have used COVID as the reason why you're not doing it. So you're able enough to do it. So COVID is not your issue. It's poor planning, and your manager caught you unawares. Why? Because she's so nice. What did you say here? She's so nice, and up until now, she's been a pleasure to work with, but she's still your manager, babes. Of course she's a pleasure to work with. You're probably delivering, and it makes her look good. Of course she's a pleasure to work with. Listen, a lot of managers are a pleasure to work with when they can ride off your successes and pass them off as their own. Of course. Yeah, they're great. Don't you hear me talk about Deborah all the time? Deborah is an amazing manager, but I'm equally as amazing. I have to know that. I'm equally as amazing because I know that the reason why she doesn't put pressure on a handful of us is because we make her look good. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. And as far as I make her look good, she stays out of my face. Do you understand? That isn't to erode the fact that she's absolutely a great manager. Yes, but she's still a human being. She's still a human being. She still makes mistakes. And I have one eye firmly on her. Because if I maybe do something, or maybe she's having a bad day, that may be taken out on me. So I'm always aware that no matter how great a manager is, they're still human. They can't bleed like us. Let us stop fantasizing about how great they are. Make them immortal. They're not. They're human beings. They either stand up to pee, they sit down to pee. Yes, when you cut them, the blood runs out. We're all human beings. So for me personally, the way I look at it, we need to stop objectifying these managers. And sometimes you've got to understand, sometimes they do things to almost, it's too perfect. So let me just add something just to bring some humanity to it. Why can't somebody just be good? Now, had you messaged me this in good time, what I would have told you to do is you should have gone back in an email to challenge it in the way you've just said it. There's nothing wrong with the suggested wording that you provided here. I would have. And I would have also added, during our write-ups, you never mentioned this. And it hasn't given me an opportunity to therefore address it in my write-up. And I would have hoped that I would have been given an opportunity to at least challenge or positively challenge this feedback. Then these people that gave unsolicited feedback about you, that was fantastic. If it was in writing, I would have attached it and sent it to her. Because at least then you would have had an audit trail. And then you would have caused her now to have to come back to you to address it. And depending on what she comes back with, maybe you think that's sufficient enough. Or if you don't, then I would have then asked for a meeting so that you can close the gap. I'll use this English term the way they use, let's close the gap. Yeah, there's no gap to close, but I'm going to close the gap on your madness. And you said, yeah, you want to close the gap. Okay, can you agree the wording? You'll send some suggested wording and make it seem like it's her idea and you're working collaboratively. And in a way, manipulate her to put the wording that you want. That's how I would have done it. I don't know how you did it. I hope you managed this properly, but hopefully this will show you that next time, not only will you respect my time, but you'll come to me in good time to be able to support you, or at least come back to you so that you could have dealt with your dilemma. But coming to me at 5:58 because you need a response by tomorrow morning, no, darling, that doesn't work. However, if you have dealt with this in the suggested way in which you've put in this dilemma, great. And I did, when I came back to you on DM or Snapchat, I did tell you that there's enough content in the podcast to help you to answer this question or answer this dilemma. So second dilemma, if you guys remember last week's podcast episode, it was a dilemma episode. Toy Talks, I am 2 months into my 3 months probation. During my probation meeting, I was told I am robotic and I need to refrain from eating and drinking at my desk. Help, my director is bullying me and nitpicking. So, do you remember that dilemma? We went through it and everything. The Black Queen that sent in that dilemma, she has sent a follow-up email. So I'm going to read it to you. Thank you. Good morning, Toya. Thank you for your email and thank you for taking time out of life to respond to my dilemma on the podcast. I truly appreciate it. I would also want to thank you for dragging me and all my edges. My God, it was painful. I had to pause numerous times and say, it's okay, I've heard, Sha. You really peppered me and I needed it. I deserved it. It's true. I have been living my career or life using learned helplessness. Your podcast is the first time I have learned or heard that term. I've been suffering from a life of procrastination until yesterday. As of listening to your podcast, I immediately contacted recruitment agencies and have started to update my CV. Guess what? The agencies are already asking me to fill out forms and send all my identification before them even speaking to me about a role. Over my dead body, I listened to your podcast on recruitment agencies. When they put me forward for a role is when I will submit my documents. Ha ha ha. Okay. So what she's saying is that there's a podcast episode I have on recruitment agencies, and what she learned is that before she submits her documents, they have to submit her for a role. Yes, of course, you can't just be giving your GDPR out there to everybody. They have to, it has to be an active role. I know some of them, they will say, oh, send your documents, and then there's no role there. No, that's bullshit. So find a role, and then I'll send you my documents. Like, you're project managing these agencies. Effectively, you get paid, so do they. On a side note, I did speak to my director about bi-weekly meetings and he flinched. That is how I know they have ulterior motives. I then proceeded to follow it up with an email. You see, this situation that she's in is that she's having to work backwards. You understand? This is your second review meeting, and now you're putting in place all the things I have said about managing a probation meeting. So she's having to work backwards. But listen, I like the fact that you tried it, because it shows you that him flinching is because he knows that his heart isn't pure. And that flinching is accountability. You're now trying to hold him accountable, and he's uncomfortable because now he realizes that you're now ready to manage your probation. Anyways, onwards and upwards from here. I will be listening to your podcast religiously going forward, and let's see what happens with me this year, as in with her this year. Thank you again for your time. I look forward to your probational masterclass. It's well overdue. Me too. Let me drag you a bit. Laugh out loud. That's not funny, by the way, because I don't need to be dragged by you. The reason you don't have a probation masterclass is because me too, I was suffering from COVID in December. And the fact of the matter is, this is not I drag you, you drag me. We're not doing dragathon. That is definitely what we're not doing. And although I know that you don't mean anything by it, but I think let's just focus on the learning lessons from the podcast episode, because yeah, you did get dragged, but you got dragged because I think for me what it was is they felt so comfortable to tell you about the food and drink that you're eating at your desk. That's mad. That's actually mad. And that you had left it up to the second probation meeting to now come to me. So the reason, and I wouldn't even call it a dragging, I just needed you to understand the seriousness of the situation that you had placed yourself in. So if you took it to be a drag, that's up to you. But me personally, I don't read dilemmas to drag people. I read the dilemmas to generally help people and to be honest about the reality of it. So for me, I don't need a dragging. Okay? At the end of the day, I create, I edit, and I develop the masterclasses all by myself. The only person in my team is Jennifer. She's the only person. And she's my PA, EA, everything else I do by myself. So if there's anything that drags me up in the morning to get me going, it's my fellow Black queens who I know rely on the podcast and on the platform to be able to navigate the world of work. So for me, my life's work is my drag. So thank you so much. And I wish you all the best, because I genuinely feel as though you understood what I was trying to say. And if it means that you are now challenged in the behavior of learned helplessness, then the episode has done what it needs to do. Like, we all suffer or have suffered from learned helplessness. When I kept falling down in the early stages of my career, not knowing how to navigate the world of work and finding myself at the job centre every few months, I needed someone to drag me. But life dragged me. The bailiffs dragged me. The demanding letters dragged me. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I don't want you to go down that level. I don't want you to have to keep repeating the same behaviour because of learned helplessness. And that learned helplessness places us in a false sense of security. And sometimes you just need to be jolted. You just need to be jolted. Like today, let me give you an example. One of my friends sent me something today. And it jolted me. It jolted me because it made me realise that there's so many things I want to do this year, but it has to be done in order. And it has to be done in order. And if I don't do it the way it's supposed to be done, I'm not going to get anything done. Do you understand? And when my friend sent me this, it wasn't to drag me, it wasn't to anything. It was just my friend just said, I just wanted to look at this. And inadvertently, she jolted me. You see, there's different degrees of learned helplessness. There's the degree of learned helplessness where you just do not do nothing. You're not helping yourself. There's a learned helplessness that is like procrastination. Eventually you will get there. That eventually may be in 2025. Do you understand? If you miss the boat of opportunity, that boat may not come and dock by you again. As far as I'm concerned, there is enough tools within the podcast to help you. There is enough, I know that. And I keep adding to it. So it's a catalogue, a repertoire of information, of tools, of the blueprint to navigate the world of work. And I still know there's more episodes to come. That's the mad thing. I'm always 4 or 5 episodes ahead. I'm already thinking about the episodes for April. Because I already know the episodes from between now and the end of March. So I'm already thinking about the things that I know that you guys are going to benefit from. But there has to come a point where you need to bridge the gap between what I provide and what you're willing to show up for. I am never going to facilitate learned helplessness. This is not the platform for you if that's what you think I'm not doing it. There has to come a time where you make a choice in your life. There has to come a time where I have to make a choice in my life. And I have been confronted with a lot of choices that I've had to make to better my life. Financial choices, relationship choices, psychological choices. Yes, I need to get that therapist. I need to make that sacrifice. Maybe I can't buy this Gucci bag for another few months. I need to pay for therapy because through therapy, I will be able to work through certain things and I could buy as many Gucci bags as I like because once I've gone through therapy and worked through the hurdles, I'm able then to achieve X, Y, Z and go to next levels to be able to boom, 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 boom. Do you understand? Let's move on to the next dilemma. Urgent. She wrote capitals. Urgent. Dilemma. Fixed term contract terminated by my line manager. I don't know what this word means. She put a word before the line manager word. I don't know what that means. And I don't want to read it out in case it attributes itself to what you do for a living. Dear Toya, I am a recent listener of your podcast and your 2 recent episodes have spoken directly to my experiences. Unfortunately, it's been too late for me to fully implement protective measures, i.e. the full burn folder, as well as I could have. However, I've been able to forward key correspondences from my work email to my personal one. I would like to gain clarity on my options. Please let me know the information you need and I can send it to you. If you can call me on and she gives me her phone number, it would be much appreciated. Okay, so obviously you're new to the podcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm able to direct you to certain episodes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my assistant to email you what those episodes are. If it relates to obviously fixed term contract, that's what you've written here. But I don't offer a consultation service one-to-one. That's not what we do here. You have to give me your dilemma and I advise you accordingly. Yeah? It's unfortunate because obviously it seems to be pretty urgent. And it's Tuesday, so I've already done this episode. So I'm not going to be, depending on the type of dilemma, I'm going to tell my assistant to email you, and you need to keep it concise and straight to the point. And then what I will do is, in the next few days, I'll hopefully be able to respond to you, and then read your dilemma again next week Tuesday for everybody else to benefit from it. So the episode I'm going to advise you to listen to is fixed term contracts are not a fixed term relationship. You need to listen to that episode. That episode came out on the 25th of August, 2020. And I will read the show notes. The current job market is bad. In fact, it's the worst I've seen it in a long time. not just in the UK, but in the US and Europe. This is, of course, a direct result of the pandemic and the recent announcement of a recession in the UK. We are now in a fixed-term contract FTC season. In this episode, I share my own experiences of fixed-term contracts and give you an overview of FTCs, things to look out for in FTC contracts, and questions to consider during the interview process of an FTC to enable you to make better and informed decisions. As Black women navigate in the world of work, we need to also navigate this uncertain season by equipping ourselves with the knowledge we need to weather the unpredictability of the current job market. This also means not undervaluing ourselves. So I'll tell you to listen to that episode. And then, obviously, depending on what the actual dilemma is, I'll hopefully be able to assist you and then refer you to other podcast episodes. But I would say that is a start. I would also say to look at the show notes of previous episodes where it's very clear about what that episode is about and become familiar with it, because what will happen is it will be, I give examples, I give you the tools and I give you the blueprint, and it may inadvertently answer your question. So yeah, I don't offer a consultancy service, a one-to-one consultancy service. I offer consultancy services to businesses that registered with Companies House, but I don't do it in the form in which you want me to, i.e. calling your mobile. I definitely do not do that. So hopefully that will help you, and then you will be advised to send your dilemma in, keep it short, sweet, concise, straight to the point, and take the emotion out of it. And then also tell me what your desired result is. What are you hoping to gain? Like what would be the ideal solution for you as a result of your dilemma? And that will guide then the way I advise you. So hopefully that helps. So I'm going to move on now from the dilemmas, and we're going to talk about Thandiwe Newton. Sorry, I was using my British accent to come and pronounce a name that's not British. So Thandiwe Newton is an actress, and you guys would have seen her. I could only describe it as a monologue, yeah. And she was basically talking about how her mum is a dark-skinned woman, that as a light-skinned woman, she knows that she's taken, these are her words, or paraphrased words, taken our quote-unquote men, and she was going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then obviously the performative tears came. That's why I thought it was a monologue. So I was even waiting for her to say that she was practicing for or auditioning for a part. I didn't realise that this was really, And I'm not going to overflog the issue here. Thandiwe Newton is a mixed race woman. She's not a black woman, she's mixed race. And now she realised that she wants to be on the right side of history. So now she's realised that she needs to talk about black related issues. When she was benefiting from the struggles of black women, and I say benefiting, I mean when she was making her money, when she was the most sought after actress, she didn't remember about any black issues. She now remembers it, and I have to question why. In my humble opinion, she now realizes that she's a mixed race woman and that she's part black. So now she's realizing that she's having some experience of, or she's getting to understand, or she's now realizing some of the experiences that as black women we have. And I think she's conflating colorism and outright racism and discrimination. And I feel like when I listen to it again, I realise that she's really talking about colorism. And if that's what you're really talking about, then you need to also educate yourself. But for me, you've already collected all the money. You've collected it. You've collected all the roles. You yourself has basically spoken about roles that you feel maybe you've taken from black women. You were the one that was talking about this monologue, and then performative white tears came jumping out. But when you were collecting the money, why wasn't you talking about these type of issues? And then it reminded me of something. It reminded me of Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle never spoke about racism when she was utilizing her ability to be white passing. Then when she realized that that wasn't a passport for her within the royal family, then she remembered that she was mixed race, and then it became a race issue. Then what she wanted to do then is trigger black women to now come and advocate for her. And I was one of those black women that came to advocate. And then I realized that I can't relate, because her issues and our issues are different. Her issue is now she's mixed race, and now she's realizing that actually her white passing is not passing in the royal family. What you're not going to do is use my emotion for hire. What you're not going to do as for me being a black woman, you're not going to use my triggers for hire. That's not what you're going to do. And I believe that it's the same issue with Thandiwe, because Thandiwe now is realizing what side of history she wants to be on. And she's now realizing, obviously, that proximity to whiteness, because she's mixed race, she's now realized that actually maybe she couldn't use that past somewhere. And now she's talking about black issues, which are not necessarily black issues. It's actually colorism, which is different. They are black issues, but they're different in that she's now talking about her personal experience. But she needs to be careful with the way she's communicating it. I definitely see synergies between her and Meghan Markle. What is very apparent is this. When now they've utilized it, that you know, and they're really enjoying, they're really taking roles, and I say taken, yes, I say it, from black women. They don't remember black issues. They're silent. Black Lives Matter, I didn't hear nothing about what Thandiwe was doing. I didn't hear anything. In fact, I've gone as far as looking for things that she's done to feed into the black community, and I ain't seen one damn thing. But now you remember that there's a black community. You now realize it. You now tell us, oh, my mum's a dark-skinned woman, but have you actually sat down with your mum and had them type of conversations? Like, really understood some of the situations your mum's been through, or dark-skinned black women have faced in a society that is wholly racist? Have you had those discussions? If you want to talk about colorism, that's a different topic altogether. But what does that have to do with, quote unquote, her words, taking black men? I don't understand. I'm so confused. Now, someone said to me, oh, maybe she was having a breakdown. Okay. But if she was having a breakdown, then she should tell us. Let's not put words into her mouth. Let's not find reasons to justify her behaviour and the things that she said. It's very easy for people to be on one side of the fence. Then when it doesn't suit them on the other, on that side of the fence, then realise actually, let's talk about black issues. And you need to look at the history of that person. Like, what have they done to feed into the community? What have they done to create awareness? What have they done to centre black women? Thandiwe, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see anything that she's done to centre black women. I don't see it. But when you wanted to do that, your monologue, and the tears were rolling, I didn't know whether she was acting. I didn't understand what was happening. I was very confused. I was waiting for a preview for a film, because I was like, okay, what are we doing here? Maybe she's releasing something. You have to decide. You have to make a decision in life. Whether you're going to use your platform and your influence to centre black women and have those uncomfortable discussions, or whether you are going to continue to bury your head in the sand. And I think Thandiwe is burying her head in the sand. And I really want to understand why she thought that the things she said would ever go down well. I don't understand. Like, what are you trying to do? You've collected all the money, all the roles, and now you're coming to talk shit to us. I don't understand. What stopped you from stepping down from some of those roles that you knew should have been played by black women and then vocally saying it? How many awards have you won that you've dedicated to black women who actually paved the way for you to be able to stand there and get that award? Why have you never spoken about some of the privileges that you feel that you may have gotten being a mixed race woman? Why can't you create awareness by speaking from a position of honesty and truth in those situations? now that your career has, I don't know what's happening there, you're now coming to use us as an audition process. I don't understand. But for me personally, Thandiwe is a mixed race woman. And I'm a black woman. So for me personally, my experiences and things I've gone through, I can't really relate to her. The experiences that I know fellow black women have gone through, I can't relate because she has a proximity, because she's mixed race, to whiteness, and therefore there's a privilege there that she's been benefiting from for several years. So maybe that's the conversation we need to have. This whole taking your black men, taking this, I don't understand. It was just strange. So what I'm going to ask all of us to do is stretch out our hands and pray for Sister Thandiwe. Because even up until now, I thought her name was Thandi Newton. I didn't even know it was Thandiwe. So my question is, when did it turn to Thandi? Was that more palatable for the white spaces that she was in? And if it was, why didn't she correct them and give them her full name? Thandiwe. What a beautiful name. But she has accommodated for white people and making them feel comfortable. And now you want to come to us now with your full name and your full monologue. And then you want what from us? What else do you want? What else? What else do you want? Our feelings, our triggers, our experiences are not for hire, Thandiwe. And I know you want to be on the right side of history, but part of being on that right side of history now is to just be truthful, be honest, and come with authenticity. You see them tears weren't hitting. So I'm going to offer you Kleenex. I'm going to ask you to take several seats. Thank you. Okay. We're going to draw this episode to a close. And that was just a light drag, by the way. That was very light. We're going to leave it there. And I'm just going to thank each and every one of you for supporting, for listening to this week's episode, for listening to previous episodes, and for sharing. You guys have really been sharing the episodes. And I realized, and sharing the podcast, sorry, and I really appreciate it. You guys listen to the podcast on all different platforms. I definitely feel very blessed to be able to come here every week and deliver an episode to you. You think it's only Adele that can have residency in Las Vegas? Oh, no. For a few weeks in March, April, we're going to have someone in residence for a few weeks. Very special person. I'm so excited to have them on the podcast. And I just know you guys are going to vibe with how our personalities are. And you're just going to love it, okay? So, like I said, I'm always planning. And we thank God for the opportunity to plan. And I just feel very blessed to be in a position whereby this podcast is really changing lives. Changing the lives of black women. And that's all I ever wanted, to really have an impactful impact in the lives of my fellow black queens as we navigate the theatrics and the circus that is the world of work. Yeah? And for me, I know that if we provide the blueprint, you give people the tools to be able to navigate success. I know it. I just know it. You know, so let us continue to gather here. We gather here every Tuesday. And whatever day you're listening to the podcast episode, I just want to thank you. And thank you for rocking with me. Please share the podcast. Please share the platform. There are so many black women in the world of work that are really suffering, not knowing that this podcast and platform exists. There are so many people who I know think they're the only ones. And we center black women because we know that our experiences are completely different in the world of work. So I'm really encouraging you to share the podcast, share the episodes. If you've got a favorite episode, share it, speak about it. I want to be in your group chats. I want you guys to have healthy conversation, because when we go in the world of work, we know that the way in which we have to navigate has to be strategic. It has to be full of understanding what we're trying to get out of this organization. We're having to swerve these mad people who see us as a problem just because we are there. And part of showing up for yourself is also giving yourself the opportunity to acquire the knowledge to know how to navigate white or non-black spaces. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, please share it. Whatever platform you're listening to the Toy Talks podcast, please rate and review, because in as much as we're getting new listeners, we're also encouraging other people who maybe don't know the platform, maybe have found it by accident, and they sometimes rely on your reviews and your ratings. So I'm encouraging you, please, to leave a rating and a review on any platform you listen, be it Google Podcasts, be it Amazon, be it Spotify, be it Apple, whatever you're listening on, please rate and review. I really appreciate it. So if you want to follow me on my personal Instagram page, my handle is Toya_Washington. Of course, we have a Toya Talks podcast Instagram page, and it's Toya_Talks. I am also on Snapchat, Toya Washington, which is all one word, and also on TikTok. So on TikTok, I now do like quick tips on work-related things. I'm really enjoying it. It's really doing well. So go ahead and follow me on TikTok. It's Toya Washington, as in Toya Washington, all one word. And if you have a work-related dilemma, your anonymity will always be protected. No matter what the situation is in the world of work, if you've made a mistake, that's how we learn. I've made several of them. And the most important thing is that you feel like you have a safe space to share your dilemma and seek advice. So if that is you and you want to send a dilemma, the email address is hello@toyatalks.com. When you send your dilemma, it's really important that you also include the outcome you are seeking, because it will help then, it will help me direct my advice to achieve what your objective is, if that makes sense. So yes, make sure you do that. And of course, we have the masterclasses on the toyatalks.com website, and we have some really exciting masterclasses coming this month. And I'm so excited to deliver it to you, or deliver them to you, I should say, because they also come with templates as well. So if you buy the masterclasses that will be coming out, they will be accompanied by really informative templates. So I'm very, very excited. And the templates only make sense if you've watched the masterclass, because you'll know how to apply it, how to use it, and the reason why I've developed those templates. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled. This February, we've got some exciting things coming, and I'm very, very, very excited. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. Stay safe until next week, Tuesday, for a brand new episode of the Toya Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.